Hello, welcome to Miniature Realms. My name's Stuart. Today I want to talk about the things in Warhammer Fantasy that have inspired me over the years, the things that really inform what Warhammer Fantasy means to me.
Miniature Realms is proudly sponsored by Counter-Attack Bases. They stock a wide range of counters, gaming aids and movement trays for multiple game systems and offer custom items to suit your club, your event or even your podcast or YouTube channel. Check out the link in the video description.
This could be a very dangerous topic. It could spiral off into many a tangent. So in order to try and keep some semblance of order, I'm going to limit myself to 10 things. Those 10 things could be completely different if you ask me the same question again next year, and that's okay as well. These are the things that have sprung to mind over the last week while I've pondered this and jotted a few notes down on my phone here and there. I could also easily branch off into 40k and other Games Workshop games, or even other systems from other manufacturers. They all are part of the journey I've had in wargaming, but I'm limiting myself particularly to Warhammer Fantasy / Warhammer the Old World for this video. And to make it more fun, I want you to put your own inspirations, the things that are really important to you about Warhammer Fantasy over the years, in the comments below. And that way will be an addition of the rules. It may be an army book, maybe a line of miniatures, an article in White Dwarf, a YouTube video, so many different things that relate to Warhammer Fantasy, but it should symbolize or inform what the game means to you. So that could be a win at a tournament, it may well be a massive participation game at a games day, whatever floats your boat, whatever kind of Warhammer you love. So my number one is 3rd edition, but not really the game itself. It's to do with the art style to a certain degree, but even more so the in-game pictures in both of those books. Warhammer Fantasy Battle 3rd edition is where it all started for me, and if you excuse Hero Quest, this was the first full Games Workshop product that I purchased in the early 90s after purchasing White Dwarf 138, and I've been a nerd ever since. I probably was one before. But it was the colour pictures in this book that really caught me at that age. I loved all the line artwork, they were brilliant. But looking at the pictures of Alan Merritt and Jim Bambra playing over Brian Ansell's table there, at the time I was just hooked. I was sold. It looked so amazing. Of course, that table's pretty basic by today's standards. Reminds me more of a club table in the sort of 90s into 2000s era. But I absolutely loved it. The huge table with the armies fighting over the top of it. I was hooked, and I'm still hooked now because of it. And the artwork in that book is still amazing to me today. There is colour art as well as line drawing, and it is extremely cool, and I'll come back to that as a future inspiration as well. But like I said, it was the battle scenes, it was showing the miniatures, showing what I could have as a 13-year-old, 12-year-old, whatever it was at the time, looking at this book. This could be my future. If I collected armies and painted them, I could play games like this. And the miniatures in the book were many of the ones that I first had as well. I had the Regiments box set when you got 10 of 6 different races in the box, and they are on these pages. And then also the castle. Which brings me on to the other book that I was holding up at the same time. And this is kind of a 2-for-1 here. I didn't purchase Siege straight away, but my next door neighbour and my best friend at the time, who I met through Warhammer, had this book. So as soon as I had Fantasy, I had Siege as well. And in many ways, it was more of the same style art shots taken at the same time, no doubt, or definitely the same gaming table. But there were also other things about this book that was really cool. It showed the possibilities, and as a youngish person at the time, the idea that you could refight sieges with a model castle that looked so complex just blew me away, and I was hooked. And it's something about the castle and the siege side of it in the early days just made it seem even more impressive. Number 2 is Wolfrup, Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 1st edition. This followed relatively quickly after Fantasy as well, and very much became part of the same world and the same hook for me, much like it is now with its return alongside Warhammer the Old World. And I touched on it already about the art style and the things that the nostalgia really brings to the fore, and it's no different here. The artwork in this book is incredible, so nostalgic for me. though I can appreciate this maybe is something of its time for many of you younger people. But for me, this formed an image of what the Warhammer world was, and I was so excited to explore it, role-play in it, battle in it, collect miniatures like nothing I'd experienced before, and probably haven't since. Number 3 is the first of 3 White Dwarfs, but it's not really the White Dwarfs themselves, not the issues, it's to do with particular articles inside. And in 141 was Mike McVeigh's Wood Elf army. This White Dwarf was only the 4th that I ever purchased, and this article of the Wood Elf army by Mike McVeigh was just so inspiring and remains so to this day. And I think there's a number of reasons for it that I haven't really considered, definitely didn't consider as a child. I wasn't hugely into wood elves over any other faction at the time. I was very much all of the good. So I had some dwarves and I had some elves, and I just enjoyed killing the bad guys. But I loved the miniatures. I love what he'd done. Some of the miniatures were the units that I had at home. Had some of these miniatures myself, so it was inspiring in that way, even though I didn't follow the paint schemes and I definitely couldn't paint to the standard. But I just loved the way the article was written by their top painter at the time. He really was, to me at the time, a rock star. We had the pictures of them in the front of the magazine. Obviously no internet, no other way of interacting with these people that worked in the studio. And as a teenager or a young lad, soon to be a teenager, I was just enthralled by the whole process, how much detail he put into the army, talking about why he made his choices, the conversions he did. It almost seemed not unachievable, but definitely something I couldn't do at the time, but still tried. I was fully inspired by this article and I read it so many times. Number 4 is White Dwarf 137, so very much a similar dish with a different flavour sauce, and this time it was Skaven flavoured, but it is an article. It's an article about Andy Chambers' Skaven army, and again, very similar to Mike McVeigh, talks about why he's built the army this way, a little bit more about lore and overall feel here. Andy is a great painter and the army looks fantastic, but he's not a studio heavy metal painter, he's a rules writer. So there's loads of lore here and there's no reasons for choosing the different armies. So it's a slightly different kind of article, but doing a very, very similar thing. And I never had a Skaven army and my next door neighbour did. So it wasn't something that I was inspired by to do myself, because my next door neighbour had the Skaven, I had the good guys. But it remained inspiring and is to this day, and it's something I'm going to be looking at later this year as I hope to find time to do my own Skaven army. Number 5 is the final White Dwarf, and it's 157, a little bit later on, and a 4th edition battle report, the Battle of Ulsterwald, and by Robin Hughes, Jervis Johnson and Bill King. And it's a huge battle with a really nice narrative to it, including some story there no doubt written by Bill King, and massive armies for the time, 3,000 points, lots of troops on the table, and it's a great battle report. It's one of the famous ones if you search online for great old battle reports done in the old style, and I love it. Now, I had this box set, I had the starter box at the time, which included all of those goblins, well, some of them, the spiky ones with the really dangerous spears and the repetitive bowmen, but it had a lot of those miniatures, and it really, really inspired me at the time of what games of Warhammer could look like. And back in these days, the battle report was one of the first things I looked for and read through when I first got my edition of White Dwarf. And this really is the seminal kind of battle report for me. And for some reason, I find them so much more interesting than I do the sort of modern versions with even more pictures in. And I don't know what it is, but I love that top-down map thing. Probably just pure nostalgia. And that's probably what it is for these first 5. A really, really heavy dose of nostalgia, which has remained my taste for Warhammer. And I love that era moving up into 4th edition. It started to change a little bit there, but I really love the artwork of that 3rd edition period. And it changed slightly moving into 4th edition, but I still really, really enjoyed it. And it's my childhood as well as happy memories are. And it really informs a lot of the way I feel around Warhammer Fantasy and Warhammer the Old World now. And partly as an adult playing it, I'm no doubt remembering and reminiscing those kind of eras, but I still love those feels now. And even in a recent army I'm building, I've got old metal miniatures as well as the latest plastic ones in there, because I just love that mix and that feel that you get from all of those things. So I think it's still inspiring me. I'm sure it's still in my veins, very much informing what I enjoy about square-based fantasy. After this period, I kept playing Warhammer, but then I went through A-levels and I went off to university, and Warhammer took the back step for a good number of years. And it's for this reason there's a massive jump now in inspiration. I jump all the way to 7th edition, and I'm choosing 7th edition as a whole for my next level of inspiration, the thing that really underlines and informs my love for Warhammer. What about 6th edition? I hear you cry. You've talked about it on the channel. You love all of that grimdark feel that was around in 6th edition. Well, it's because I didn't play it at the time, so it didn't really inform my Warhammer, the way I feel about the Warhammer world, until more recently. And if the old world hadn't come to pass, I probably would be playing 6th edition now, because it feels like that's where the community would be should it have not been written. 7th edition hadn't quite made it into the same level of nostalgia for people. People chose 6th over 7th. But I'm going to argue for 7th a little bit and tell you why it's so special to me. Obviously, nostalgia plays a huge part in it again, and I think that's fine. That's what inspires us so often. That's what gives us the good feels, and hopefully why we do hobbies, because we're not doing them to enrich our lives in any other way. They make us feel good. They give us something positive in our lives. Sometimes in a world that's a little bit dark and challenging, or whether it's just a challenging work environment or something, hobbies are a great release, and that's why I enjoy them so much. So 7th edition being a nostalgia trip for me, that's absolutely fine. Looking back on it through a new lens now, I think it was a really good edition that maybe lost its way with some of its army books towards the end of the edition, with demons and dark elves and vampire counts maybe being a little bit too good. But that's the story of every edition, and we could talk about those stories in the current edition now. But the game had a really, really nice mix between old and new. There were still old miniatures pictured in that rulebook, right back from 5th edition miniatures still there, still Empire troops from that era showing in the book, which is great. And that the battle table still had a nice mix between homemade terrain, which we're now seeing again in the old world, and some really, really cool hobby going on there. Armies with lovely movement trays that reminded me of the game I loved as a teenager, but sort of slightly modernized, but without losing the essence of Warhammer. There was some wonderful terrain that was much more grim-dark than when I stopped playing the game. We were starting to edge into 5th edition, and it started to get a bit too red, even for my taste. Remember, I loved the 3rd edition black and white line art and the grim feel that you had from Wolfrup. Well, some of that was there now in colour for me, looking at some of the beautiful buildings that the tables represented. We had themed battlefields. There were massive illustria battle tables, and then the pictures of Warhammer World, which didn't really exist when I was around as a teenager either, showing this really cool place that you could go and play games. And while I didn't travel and go and play games straight away there, it just opened up the hobby again, and as someone returning, it made me super excited. So for me, it was a perfect meld of that grimdark Warhammer that I remember from 3rd edition, not really thinking about 6th edition at the time, but it's obviously a progression through that, and some really, really cool new things. I mean, look at the boat there we had there. Look at the baggage train. That's really cool stuff, and hopefully things that we will turn to in Warhammer the Old World. Even the army books of that era, of which I devoured the Dwarves and Empire books many, many times over, they had a lovely mix of full colour, but also loads and loads of black and white art, which I absolutely loved. Yes, I know much of that was to do with the stylings of 6th edition being carried over, but to me at that time, it informed and reminded me of what was happening in 3rd edition and the things I liked back there, when it was a little bit more grim and dark and different, and not quite so red. Number 7 is extra publications, and many of these, as I've mentioned before, I've regretted selling over the years and wish I had them again now. One of the prime examples is the Empire Uniforms and Heraldry book. There's a High Elf one as well. Absolutely love this book, still use it today for reference all the time. A little bit of lore, lots of flags and a map, but mostly just full of beautiful colour plates of all the different provinces and the uniforms they make, and it's just fantastic. There are also publications like Grudge Lore and Empire at War, produced by Black Library. Lots of lore in there, lots of background, a real mix and styles of some of the artwork, but I really love these beautiful pencil drawings, these sketches there to just really give a different feel or background. They're concept arts really, and I just love it. It's just fantastic. Really evokes the feel of what Warhammer is to me, and this is what this is about, the inspiration, what Warhammer feels like to me. If I close my eyes and imagine the world of Warhammer, this is the way I see it. Number 8 isn't going to be me waving around something that Games Workshop's produced and printed into a book, which is mostly what it's been by now, or miniatures via the way of an article. It's actually podcasts, and again it goes back to the era of which I came back into gaming. Obviously podcasts didn't exist back in the early to mid 90s, so we're talking about Warhammer Fantasy podcasts at the time. First was Podhammer, next was Bad Dice, and then Heel and Hammer, and I listened to lots of others around that era as well, but they were seminal. I listened to them without fail, and I know that some of you watch this channel in a similar way now, and I know some of you watch some of the other channels as well, or listen to the podcast the same as I do, and it's a really nice way to connect with the hobby when you're hobbying or when you're not able to, and it just gives you another way to integrate with the hobby. But podcasts were quite new back then. There weren't many wargaming ones at all. There are a couple of 40k ones, but it was a new thing, and I absolutely fell in love with it, and it's probably the reason that I do this today. Bad Dice and Heel and Hammer and Podhammer are the reason I make content. I've made podcasts in the past. I've made videos and things about other game systems. But those podcasts are the reason that I do this, because I loved it. I thought it's fantastic. One day I want to make a podcast. It took me a long time after I finished listening to those to actually do something myself, but they were the inspiration for that. And yeah, thank you to those guys back there who did it, and hopefully me making videos like this could inspire you to start your own YouTube channel, your own podcast. You should absolutely do it. Go and give it a go. Number 9, I'm waving around the 8th edition beast of a book, but it's not 8th edition that's my number 9 inspiration. It's actually part of this book that's a massive display stroke battle stroke scenario, and it's At the Gates of Volganof. Now this book had absolutely everything, and there's a chaos invasion in 2515, the slaughter of Volganof, and you get some colour plates in there, as you can imagine, and you get Ostland under siege and some more colour plates, but more importantly you get the At the Gates of Volganof. Opens up into this huge battle scene, this huge siege with this wonderfully created miniature, which you can still see in Warhammer World today. Just I hope it's still there. It was the last time I went. It's been moved a little bit. It's not quite as big now. You don't see the whole attacking forces. It's a little bit smaller, but the most of the castle, I believe, is there. Maybe not some of the stuff in the background, but it's absolutely stunning, using loads and loads of the fortress kit and lots of other building kits and things chucked in there as well. I could just stare at it for hours. I absolutely love it. And again, this for me sums up Warhammer. It reminds me of those early black and white pictures in the 3rd edition book. It evokes all those feelings for me, but also it just inspires it. When I build something or paint something or build a board and build a scene, this is the kind of stuff that does it. And the new one that's there now for Warhammer the Old World is brilliant, and maybe if I make this video in a few years time that will be there. But there's something about this, something about it being the Empire, and I just love it. It's just fantastic. And if you're in the UK and you got the chance to go and see this miniature, you should. But also check out the 8th edition rulebook for the scenario and this part of the book. It's just really inspiring, wonderful. Number 10 is another book, but of a different kind. In fact, it's not just one book. It's a whole series by many authors, and it's Gotrek and Felix. They just absolutely say Warhammer to me and so many other people. They are the poster boys of Warhammer Fantasy throughout the years in many ways, and Gotrek still is now with Age of Sigmar, and I think that's cool in its own way. I really like the Bill King stories the most, and I quite like the Nathan Long stories. I haven't read even all of the later ones, to be honest with you, but they're just so inspiring, and there's something really cool about them. I quite like a lot of different Warhammer novels. I really love Graham McNeil's Sigmar Legends series. They are brilliant, but again, you're imagining a prehistory almost there. It's not quite the same as the Warhammer world that we play in. So in terms of inspiration, Gotrek and Felix always do it for me. And personally, I think you can learn a lot more about the world, the Warhammer world, following a couple of characters around who are doing normal things as well as fighting big monsters. They're visiting towns, they're talking to people. You get a feel for what it's like to walk through the streets of the old world, through the Empire. Whereas some of the more campaigny big battle type games, when you're only seeing the biggest heroes, it doesn't always feel that way. You're looking at the world through a different lens, and that's why I love Gotrek and Felix so much. It takes you back to the streets, but with the normal man, as much as it does take you off to really, really big adventures and big, powerful heroes. So that's my 10, and there is a theme for me there all the way through, which is very old world centric, empire centric, empire of man centric, with a sprinkling of dwarves and elves chucked in. It's because of the way I view the world I like most in the old world is the human centric stuff around the empire, and I like those kind of themes, and that's why I've picked the things that I have, the things that remind me of those 3rd edition days, playing Wolfrup, walking the streets, going into taverns, that kind of thing. They're those kind of stories is why I like Gotrek and Felix, and a lot of the imagery and things I like are to do with empire. Of course, there are things that stand out, like the articles with the Skaven and the Wood Elves, again because I was inspired by the people that worked in the studio at that time, and that probably informs a lot of the work I do now with the big army videos that I do. I want to produce something that looks nice and share it with people. So there's so much here that's underlying that probably makes a lot of sense if you look at the content I make on the channel. A lot of the hobby content, there are correlations that you can draw to these kind of inspirations. And like I said at the top of the video, if I made this video again next year, I could pick out different articles and maybe different inspirations in different books. But when I knew that I was going to make this video and wanted to talk about the things that inspired me most, those are the things that came to mind, the things that really stood out to me. Of course, there'll be other examples. As I also said at the beginning, I want to know what inspires you, what informs your Warhammer, what makes you love Warhammer. And it may be completely different to mine. Mine are all aesthetic based, lore based, narrative based, real feely, touchy, hobby based stuff. Yours might be hanging out with friends, so it may well be going to events, maybe the community side, meeting up with people, all of the social things that might be more important. That's what Warhammer might mean to you. So put that, if that's what it is. You can put 10 things, you can put 20 things, you can put 1 or 2 things. I'm just really interested to know the seminal things that stand out for you and what makes you love Warhammer. Anyway, if you've enjoyed the video, please do give it a like and drop that comment as I mentioned below. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. If you want to support me and the channel make more rambly videos like this, please do check out my Patreon. It's the very best way of making sure I can keep making videos like this. And thank you to all my existing patrons. I really, really genuinely couldn't do this without your support. Links for all of this in the video description. And check out the channel sponsor Counterattack Bases for all your gaming needs and custom dice. Thank you very much for watching. Take care. I'll catch you soon.